This is review for relations, functions, writing equations, and solving equations. Let's begin. This is on page 71, starting with number 15. Okay, they give us a table. I think I'll just show the answer for these first couple. They give us a table and ask us to write them as ordered pairs. So I'll just kind of explain as we go. So the table to ordered pairs should be very simple because you just write them in the same order that they are right here. You do not have to write these squiggly brackets for me, but you do have to put all ordered pairs in parentheses. So this ordered pair, -2, 4, you need to put it in parentheses and put a comma between the two numbers. This would be the point 1, 2, 3, 0, and 4, -2. So I hope you can see it really is very straightforward going from a table to ordered pairs. Now it's a little more challenging going from a mapping, but you just follow the arrows. So if you notice, -3 has 2 arrows coming from it. So that means we need 2 ordered pairs that begin with -3. The order doesn't matter, but you have -3, 2. That's your first ordered pair. You also have -3, 4. Then we go down to the next number, -1, 0. So you just follow the arrows. That's the x value. What it goes to is the y value, -1, 0. Then +1 goes to -2. So we have +1, -2. Then 3 is the x value, pointing to 0, the y value. So just use the arrows to help you connect the x's, which are on the left, to the y's that are on the right. Okay, 17 asks you to determine the domain and range. So the domain is all the x values. So again, you don't have to draw the squiggly brackets for me. Officially, math people say you should, but I'm not requiring it. But the domain is all the x values. So that's the first number in each of the ordered pairs. So 2, -1, 0, 3, and -4. You can look and see that's exactly what they have written there. Range is all the y values. That's the second number in the ordered pairs. So 5, 3, -1, 3, -2. Now the book does have a mistake right here. When you list domain and range, numbers should not be repeated. So since 3 showed up twice, they listed 3 twice, you should not do that for the domain and range. So they should have just listed 5, 3, -1, and since 3 was already in the list, not listed again, and put -2. Okay? To determine whether the relation is a function, we look at the x values. X's cannot repeat. So look at the x's. 2, -1, 0, 3, -2. Those are all different. They're all unique, so this is a function. Y values can repeat. If you notice, 3 shows up more than once as a y value. That's fine. Y's can repeat. X's cannot repeat to be a function. Okay, then I will work through 19 and 20 with you. So on 19, we're working with the function g of x, which is defined as x squared plus 7x. And they ask us, number 19, to find g of 3. So whatever's in the parentheses, you replace the x's, whether there's one or more, however many there are, replace all the x's with whatever's inside. So in the function, x gets squared, and then you add 7 times x. So we're going to say, 3 squared plus 7 times 3. 3 squared is 9. 7 times 3 is 21. And 9 plus 21 is 30. So g of 3 is 30. When 3 is the x value for the function, the result, the y value, is 30. Okay, 20 is very similar, but it's working with a different function. It's working with f of x, which is 5 minus 2x. And they ask us to find f of -6y. So just like before, whatever's in parentheses, whether it's numbers, variables, or both, you replace the x with that. So this function did 2 times x, but now we're replacing the x with negative 6y, so we do 2 times negative 6y. So we have 5 minus 2 times negative 6 is negative 12y. And it's important to remember, anytime you have minus a negative, you can change it to plus a positive. Okay, so that's relations and functions. You can also look at what we did in classwork for some extra help there, a review. Okay, then on page 129, we're switching to writing equations and solving equations. So I think, again, for the first two, it would make more sense for me to just show them to you and talk through them. So starting with number 9, the sum of 5 times the number x. So sum means adding. So 5 times x. When you see the and, that's where the plus goes. So sum and means plus there. So 5 times x plus 3. So they got 5x plus 3. Sum means add. 5 times x and 3. When you see the word is, that's where you put the equal sign. Or they say is the same as 15. So that's why 15 goes over there. Number 10, 4 times the difference. So when they tell you to multiply by a difference or by a sum, that means you're going to need parentheses, because you're not just doing 4 times a single thing, you're doing 4 times a subtraction in this case. So we got to do 4 times the difference of b and 6. So it's b minus 6. That's the difference of b and 6. And we have to do 4 times that entire difference. Is equal to equals b squared, b squared. (11) 1/2 of m cubed is the same. So half of m cubed, 1/2 of means times 1/2 times m cubed, right there, is the same as equals 4 times m minus 9. Okay, let me write those down just for the sake of them all being here, and then I will move on to the next problems. So again, I'm just writing down the answer so I'll have it on this paper. Feel free to jump ahead in the video if you wish. Okay, so now I'll work these out on this paper. We're going the opposite direction. So on number 12, it says we should translate each equation into a sentence. So 3p plus 8 equals 20. So 3p plus 8, that's addition. So we need to say the sum of, so the first thing we're adding is 3 times p. And we put an and where the addition is, because the sum is what tells us it's a plus. 8 is, or is equal to, or is the same as, you can say any of those, 20. They give us the equation h squared minus 5h plus 6 equals 0. Okay, so I'm actually not going to use the words difference or sum here, because we don't just have one operation going on this side, we have 2 operations. So in that case, I'm just going to use like minus or increased by or decreased by or plus. Anything like that would be fine. So I'd start by saying h squared plus 5 times h Wow, sorry. You may already see my mistake there. Goodness gracious. So that's not a plus sign. Boop, 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 boop. H squared minus 5 times h. And I'll say plus or increased by 6 is 0. Okay, 14. 3/4 w squared plus 2/3 w minus 1/5 equals 2. Again, I'm not going to use the word difference or sum since we've got both of them happening. I'll do it similar to number 13. So we can say 3/4 of, because you can use of to be times. If you said times, that'd be fine too. You could say 3/4 times, or 3/4 times w squared plus, or you could say increased by, 2/3 of or times w. You could say minus or decreased by 1/5 is equal to 2. Okay, now 15 is a good word problem because I think it helps you see how this might actually be helpful in a real world scenario. So Adrian wants to create an outdoor rectangular kennel. So a good idea when they talk about a shape is to draw it. The length will be 3 feet more than twice the width. So the length will be equal to 3 feet more than twice the width. So we'll have to double the width and add 3 to get the length. So there's the length right there, and we'll just call this W. Write and use an equation to find the length and the width of the kennel if Adrian has 54 feet of fencing. So she has 54 feet she can use to make all 4 sides. So that means 54 feet is the perimeter. And perimeter for a rectangle is 2L plus 2W. Okay, now nothing to change with a W. W is W. But we can substitute this in for the length. So perimeter equals 2 times 3 plus 2W plus 2W. And I also almost forgot, we can plug 54 in for the perimeter. So I'll plug 54 in here. Distribute, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times 2W is 4W, plus 2W. Okay, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides and go ahead and combine 4W and 2W into 6W. So my last step is to divide by 6, and that tells me the width. So I've got half my answer because it asks for the width and the length. So the width is 8 feet. Now we can go back to this to figure out the length, because we know the length is 3 more than twice the width. So to figure out the length, I can just plug 8 in for W. Two plus 8 is 16, and 3 plus 16 is 19. So the length is 19 feet, and the width is 8 feet. And if you wanted to, you could double check this. You could plug 19 in for the length, 8 in for the width, and then see if that equals 54. Now, moving on to solving equations. 16, we start with x minus 9 equals 4. So remember that to get a variable by itself, we have to do the opposite of what's being done to it. So what's being done to x is 9 is being subtracted from it. So we have to do the opposite and add 9 to it. 4 plus 9 is 13. -17, -6 plus g equals -11. Okay, so this is a -6. So the way to undo a -6 is to add 6 to it, because our goal is to cancel this out. If I subtracted 6, I'd get -6 minus 6 would be -12, so that doesn't cancel it out. But -6 plus 6 is 0, so that cancels it out. And -11 plus 6 is -5. Okay, I'll do 18, but there's none like 18 on the test. Though actually this one's not that hard, but still, I'm not going to make you add and subtract fractions. You will have to multiply and divide them, but not add or subtract them. But this one's pretty straightforward because it is the same denominators already. So to get w by itself, right now it's being added 5/9. So we subtract 5/9. It cancels out. 7 minus 5 is 2, and we leave the denominators the same. So w equals 2/9. 19, 3.8 equals m plus 1.7. So right now m is having 1.7 added to it, so we got to do the opposite and subtract. So 8 minus 7 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2. So m is equal to 2.1. 20, a over 12 equals 5. So a is being divided by 12, so we got to do the opposite and multiply both sides by 12. 5 times 12 is 60. (21) is 8y equals 48. So y is being multiplied by 8, so we go to the opposite and divide it by 8. And 48 divided by 8 is 6. (22) 2/5b equals -4. Now there's a way to do this in 1 step or 2 steps. You can do whichever you want. I'm going to choose the 2-step way for this video. So I know I want to get rid of the 5, and it's on the bottom, it's in the denominator, so it's really being divided by 5. So I need to multiply both sides by 5. Because those cancel out. -4 times 5 is -20. Now I need to divide by 2 to get rid of that 2. And -20 divided by 2 is -10. Okay, 23. They have the negative sign out front. I'm gonna put it down in the bottom because I know I want to get rid of it. So right now t is being divided by -16. So to get rid of it, I'll multiply both sides by -16. So that cancels out here. So we do have t by itself. And I'll treat this as -16 over 1. Now if you notice, 8 and 16 are both divisible by 8. So I can divide this by 8 and it becomes 1. Divide this by 8, it becomes -2. So I have -7 times -2, which is +14, over 1 times 1. So our final answer is 14. Okay, 24. Max is 4 years younger than his sister Brenda. So to get Max's age, you have to take Brenda's age and subtract 4, because he's 4 years younger than Brenda. Max is 16 years old. So I can plug in 16 for Max. Then it says write and solve an equation to find Brenda's age. So we've already done writing the equation. We solve it by plugging in Max's age, which is 16. Then add 4 to both sides. We get 20 equals B. Okay, we're in the last section, which is the multi-part or multi-step equations. And remember, in general, you're going to do the order of operations backwards, or you can think of it as move the thing that's farthest away from the variable first. And by farthest away, I mean like physically as is written on the page. So on 25, they're multiplying d by 2, then subtracting 4. So if we knew what d was equal to, we'd multiply by 2 first, then we'd subtract 4. So we've got to do the opposite in the opposite direction. So we would add 4 first. And then to get rid of the 2d, or the 2, we would divide both sides by 2, giving us d equals 6. -9 equals 3t plus 6. So remember, it's written on the right side this time, but it's it's the t we want to get rid of. So they multiplied it by 3, then they added 6. We got to do that in reverse. So we subtract 6 first. Sorry. And then instead of multiplying by 3, we divide both sides by 3. We would get -5 is equal to t. Okay, 14 equals -8 minus 2k. So we just think of the farthest away thing. There's the variable k. 2 is really close to it. 8's farther away from it. So we want to take care of the 8 first. So it's a -8, so to get rid of it we have to add 8. So we get 22 equals -2k. Then we divide both sides by -2. 22 divided by -2 is -11. So -11 is equal to k. N over 4 minus 7 is equal to -2. So just like before, we think, okay, the 4 is attached to the n, or it's closer to the n because they're in the same fraction together. 7's farther away. So we'll add 7 to both sides. And then n is being divided by 4, so we need to do the opposite and multiply both sides by 4. And that gives us the n is equal to 20. R plus 4 over 3 is equal to 7. So the r and the 4 are together in the top of the fraction. The 3 is down below it, separated by this line, so the 3 is farther away. Or another way to think about it is, if we were to plug in a number for 4, the first thing we would do is add 4, plug in a number for r. First thing we would do is add 4 to it, then after that we'd divide by 3. So we have to do the opposite in the opposite order, so we would multiply both sides by 3. The 3's cancel on this side, and 7 times 3 is 21. And then we subtract 4 from both sides. We get r equals 17. Okay, 30 is very similar in structure. So So we'll do pretty much the same steps. Negative 18 equals 9 minus a over 2. So we want to get rid of the 2 first. So we multiply both sides by 2. Gives us negative 36 equals 9 minus a. Now that is a positive 9. So to get rid of it, I have to subtract 9 from both sides. That gives me negative 45 equals negative a. So we need to do one more step because we can't end with our variable being negative. Answers can be negative, the numbers can be negative, but the variable cannot be. So remember, there's an understood 1 in front of this variable. So we can fix this by dividing both sides by negative 1. So negative 45 divided by negative 1 is positive 45, and that is what a is equal to. Okay, 31, 6g minus 3.5 equals 8.5. We'll start by adding 3.5. Half and half is 1. 8 and 3 is 11, so 11 plus 1 is 12. We divide both sides by 6, and we get g is equal to 2. Okay, 32.2c plus 4 equals 6. So the 4 is farther away from the c, so we want to subtract 4 from both sides first. And then we divide both sides by 0.2. Now we've talked about this before in another topic long ago, but we don't like decimals inside of fractions. So we can move this decimal over one place, but if we do it at the bottom, we have to do it to the top as well. So we turn it from 2 over 0.2 to 20 over 2, and 20 divided by 2 is equal to 10. F over 3 minus 9.2 equals 3.5. So I need to add 9.2 to both sides. F over 3 equals 3 and 9 is 12, 2 and 5 is 7. Then we multiply both sides by 3. Okay, so let's do this the long way. 12.7 times 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 3 times 1 is 3. And we have one decimal place in the problem, so we should have one decimal place in the answer. So that is what F is equal to, 38.1. Okay, 34. 4 equals negative 3u minus negative 7, all divided by negative 8. So first thing I would do personally, minus a negative is the same as plus a positive, so I would go ahead and just change those to pluses. Now, the thing farthest away from the u is actually the 8 because it's in the denominator where everything else is up in the top, the numerator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 8. So those cancel over here, and we get negative 32 equals negative 3u plus 7. Then we subtract 7 from both sides, get negative 39 is equal to negative 3u. Then we divide both sides by negative 3, and we get u is equal to 13. Okay, for the last two, it talks about consecutive integers. If you don't know how to do these, it is not going to hurt you on the test, I promise. But I wanted to stretch you guys and think about it. So on 35, it says 3 consecutive odd integers with a sum of 63. So 3 consecutive odd integers equals 63. So remember, odd integers, that would be like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So we don't know what the first one is in the list, so we'll just call it x. But if you think about the list of odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, they're all exactly 2 apart. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 2 is 5, and so on. So that means if x is the smallest one on our list, the next one is exactly 2 bigger than x, because you always have to add 2 to get up to the next odd integer. And consecutive just means in a row. So the one after that would be 2 more for a total of 4 being added to x. Because like 1 to 5 is 4, 3 to 7 is plus 4, 5 to 9 is plus 4. So you have to add 2 every time to get to the next odd number. So now we can combine these. We have 3 x's. 2 plus 4 is 6. Give me 1 second. Something seems strange here. 3 consecutive. Okay, this is good. Oh yeah, we're good, we're good. I was overthinking. Okay, so we subtract 6 from both sides. We get 3x equals 57. Then we divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals 19. Now that's not our final answer, because remember, x is our smallest number, and they're wanting to know what 3 consecutive odd numbers will make this work. So 19 is the first one. The next one is 2 bigger than that, which is 21. The next one's 2 bigger than that, which is 23. And if you add those 3 numbers together, you will in fact get 63. Last one. This one's just saying consecutive integers. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. These are only 1 apart. It says find 3 consecutive integers with a sum of negative 39. So the first integer is just x, we don't know it. The second one is x plus 1, because we're not skipping any, we're not doing odds or evens, we're just doing all the integers. Next one is 2 bigger than it. And that totals negative 39. So we add the x's together, that's 3 x's. 1 plus 2 is 3. We subtract 3 from both sides, we get 3x equals negative 42. We divide both sides by 3, and we get our smallest number, which is negative 14. So the next one up from that would be negative 13. The next one up from that would be negative 12. So those would be the 3 consecutive integers that add up to negative 39.